Բարև ձեզ, գրադարանում այսօր զրուցում ենք մեդիայի ու ռազմավարության հարցերով միջազգային խորհրդատու Կատյա Գորչինսկայի հետ. Hello, Katya.
Hello.
So talk of the importance of media monetization had been particularly active since the US freeze of funds of independent on independent media this year in January or February. Yeah. So what progress have you seen in strengthening the media's ability to make money more effectively during this year? Any progress?
I think that the crash of US funding has actually forced journalists and managers to think more about monetization and kind of delivered the point in a very kind of sharp way that they need to think about their business model in a more holistic way rather than depend on donor funding. But I think that this transition has been kind of coupled with emergency funding surge while people are trying to understand what other forms of monetizations exist for them. And I think that still in Armenia, there is a lot of resistance to the trend that we see in the world. In the world, the media are sort of returning to the original model of monetizing the audiences, and we see the rise of subscriptions and memberships and things like that, these types of forms of monetization. But when I was working with independent media in Armenia this time, they continue saying, oh, it's not possible, oh, it's very difficult. And yes, we used to see the same resistance in other countries, but we can see that this form of this business model is kind of crawling from the west to the east, and eventually, hopefully, it will make here, because your research actually is quite positive on this, because 23% of your population in polls say that they would be ready to support media in this form of monetization.
In smaller countries than Armenia, like in Estonia, membership or subscriptions are working. So what do you think? What's the main problem? It's a culture of donating or subscribing to media outlets. And I mean, absence of culture. What's the problem with our media environment or business environment or society?
I think Estonia is quite unique, even in the Baltic space, because if you look at the three Baltic states, Estonia has the highest rates of subscription, and they have their media monetized this way a lot more effectively than in Latvia or Lithuania. And that kind of surprises Estonian media holdings, because a lot of them are parent companies for pan-Baltic organizations, and they kind of come to other countries expecting the same level of monetization, but that doesn't happen. So yes, there is a cultural element and maybe some historical element, but there is also an important element of like the sooner you start trying, the sooner you will succeed. And yes, maybe the pioneers in this form of monetization, it will be very difficult for them, because they will effectively be going against the flow and trying to train the audience and explain to the audience that, yes, if you want quality independent information, yes, if you want media with a bite, then you have to support us. But eventually it will come.
What are the other solutions, especially for Armenian media? I mean, yes, subscriptions, yes, membership. What do you think? What will work for us?
I think that people would pay a lot of money to get a proper answer to that question. But, I have... so 2 days ago, I was working with a whole group of independent Armenian media, and I have a presentation for them, made a presentation for them that has like 100 forms of monetization. Mm-hmm. We can see that a lot of media in the world are being very creative and kind of trying to assemble their business model like a puzzle from the pieces that they have. Because any strategy, regardless of whether it's related to monetization or other aspects of business, is created on the intersection of internal and external factors. So on one hand, they need to understand their market and their audience really well to understand what exactly they can monetize. And it can be expertise, it can be the brand, it can be the people, it can be creative services. The possibilities are endless. And on the other hand, it has to be rooted in the competencies and in the resources that the media has and continues to develop. And only then will they create a business model that will take them into the future and will be stable and will be able to support them.
Because the other side is the trust. Because like 4 years ago, we have a very low level of trust towards media and journalism. Now it's little bit it rose little bit during last years, but still, like knowing audience and trust from the audience is the key factor we lose sometimes.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And if trust in media in Armenia is growing, then congratulations, you are going against the world trend, because in the world the trend is opposite.
It is not growing, but comparing with the polls we had like 4 years ago, it's slightly better.
Good for you, and that is a huge basis for developing on it and creating a business model that works.
Like in your last article, I read and you wrote that media outlets or media they lost a battle to social media. Now it's time of AI. So we are losing again. Are we losing again?
Are we losing again? Yes, we are. And it's not just us. We know that the world is going through a major disruption in multiple aspects, in many businesses, many industries, including everything that's related to information consumption. We saw a similar disruption when social media started to rise and take away audiences from the media. Now we are seeing a direct relationship between people, our audiences, and AI chatbots or AI generative engines. People ask them questions and get direct answers. They don't have to go to the primary source, which is very dangerous because it once again undermines the models that media have, and they have to rethink their models once again for the age of AI. They need to think about generative engine optimization, not just search engine optimization, and that's a word that many people haven't even heard yet. It's a phrase that has only existed for about a year. And now you have to investigate and start working with that to make sure that your content is visible to the robots before it gets in front of human eyes. And how to bring people back to my own platforms is a completely other story. It's not just the visibility; it's also compelling people to take that one extra step is very important. But if you don't manage to do it, then you will no longer exist in 5 years and 10 years' time.
Yeah, because direct traffic to the websites decreasing, I think, not only in Armenia, but in the world. And like we've seen the process of pushing, media, tech giants to share some part of their revenue with the media outlets, because they do money on the content media creates. And now we observe the same with the rise of AI. So do you see any model how they can share money with those who create this content?
I think expecting the giants to share with you is very naive. I think there are a lot of attempts to make that happen, and we have seen large media organizations even striking deals to sell their content, sell their archives, and access of generative or LLMs to their content to be able to train LLMs. But we have seen that a year ago we had a lot of those headlines, but now there is a lot less. So that model is no longer operational. The LLMs, the companies that run large language models, have all the information they need, and that's no longer a model. All they need now is directly reported stories, and that's the only value that the media can bring to the table. But is there any sort of form of monetization in that? I don't know. There doesn't seem to be, although a lot of people are trying to think through models in access to the reported information in real time. But I don't think that independent, smaller organizations, and especially in countries that are perceived as smaller and less important by media giants, and we have to think about that, they are cynical. It's just not going to happen. So there needs to be other forms of thinking around it. There needs to be the kind of value creation within the media ecosystem, within the media themselves, that makes it indispensable for the audience. That is the only way.
So you worked with Armenian media outlets before this visit, and you continue to work, and maybe in the future you will continue. What are your three main advices to Armenian media outlets or editors or those who are in charge of monetization and sales?
I think my first piece of advice would not be about monetization, it would be about product. I think the Armenian media need to be more diversified. They need to have a bite. They need to be bolder. They need to create bolder product. And maybe they need to specialize more narrowly. Maybe they need to create the kind of value that really makes them distinctive in the market. That I think would be number one. Number two would be to be a lot more realistic about what you should be doing, need to be doing, and can't be doing, and prioritize ruthlessly, selecting, and that concerns the editorial output as well as your business activities. So it's better to be smaller but recognizable and recognized for a specific product and monetize that specific product than try to be all things for all people. I don't think that model is going to work in your market. And I think number three, if we're talking about monetization, is to be a lot more creative and a lot more explorative in discovering new forms of monetization, a lot more open to experiment and running them in a smart way, designing the experiments for monetization, understanding that reliance on just grant money, for example, or expecting the money to somehow appear is just no longer an option. You have to explore and you have to be aggressive about it.
Thank you for this conversation.
You're most welcome.